Hi, it's John and welcome to the channel. Great to have you along today. It is still Wednesday, March the 26th. It's 3:42 p.m. with my big blue mug of coffee. I'm recording this early because I want to get a bit of a sleep in on Thursday morning. So you're watching this on Thursday morning. So on Wednesday, the story broke about Mark Carney and a Bermuda tax shelter for Brookfield. And I think I have a different perspective on this from a conservative point of view and the way Poilievre should play this or should have played this. And I have a question regarding Mark Carney and whether he should be having different accommodations right now. I'll get to that in just a moment. So the story is here on the National Post. Carney defends Brookfield's use of Bermuda tax shelters, says structure help pensioners. If we go down here, Carney told reporters at a campaign stop in Windsor, Ontario, that the funds were registered in Bermuda to avoid double taxation. Quote, the important thing is that the flow through of the funds go to Canadian entities who then pay the taxes appropriately, as opposed to taxes being paid multiple times before they get there, unquote, said Carney. So let's watch that video.
Could I just follow up on that? Could you explain in the case of those Brookfield funds, like what was the argument for registering the funds in Bermuda? Is it ethical to do that? And is it something as Prime Minister that you'd have to crack down on? I'm not sure if it's a problem, but is that something that you'd have to crack down on?
I think the important thing, Tom, is that the flow through of the funds go to Canadian entities who then pay the taxes appropriately, as opposed to taxes being paid multiple times before they get there. So that's how we have the structure. That's the structure that all of our pension funds, for example.
So there's a couple things there. There's one thing he says. I'll translate what he says there to the best of my ability. And there's another thing that he avoids there. So the first thing is he says if it benefits Canadians down the road, it's okay for Brookfield to avoid taxes in Canada and find a tax shelter in Bermuda because the people down the road are paying the taxes. So that's a great bit of information to know if you're a business. And this is not illegal from what I understand. This is right above board, but you have to properly report to the Canada Revenue Agency. So I would be looking into that. He says everything's above board, but do you trust this guy? Because I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. Now, the other thing he doesn't say in there, he's asked right off the top, is this ethical? He didn't answer that question because I don't think this is ethical at all. I've got a different perspective on this from the conservative standpoint. I mentioned that off the top, so stay tuned for that. But the other thing in this story, let's go back to the National Post story. The stuff in yellow here is really a concern to me. People are thinking about the Bermuda tax shelter, but it's this line right here in this National Post story that really concerns me. And remember, I just said I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. The funds were geared toward investments in green energy and infrastructure, holding combined assets of $25 billion. Brookfield invested in green energy and infrastructure, and they did that in Canada. Who was the economic advisor of Justin Trudeau while he was at Brookfield? That would be Mark Carney. I want to know how he personally benefited from influencing the government of Canada to invest in green energy and infrastructure to the tune of $25 billion. We don't know this because he hasn't divulged all his information. He says everything's fine. Do you trust him? Go back to me. I can trust him as far as I can throw him. I'm really concerned about that part of this. I mean, this guy is as slimy as it gets, folks. I mean, look at this article right here. This is from 2023. International Tax Watchdog questions asset management giant Brookfield's tax transparency. I'll just read a little bit of this to you. The Center for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research, CICTAR, I'm going to call it that, released a report Tuesday which alleges the firm engages in tax avoidance and challenges the company on its claim to be a responsible and sustainable investor. Brookfield's track record of alleged tax dodging has received some attention in Australia and Canada, where it may claim the title of Canada's top tax dodger, the report reads, and there is an apparent pattern of aggressive tax avoidance consistent across its global operations. Brookfield disputes the claim, saying in an email to the Star, and this is in the Toronto Star. If we go down here to the bottom, despite Brookfield's assertion, CICTAR's report concludes with a demand Brookfield Corp adopt more transparent practices. Brookfield has opposed the resolution. Siktar says, quoting a response from Brookfield saying it doesn't believe the company has any tax-related negative impacts on human rights, the economy, or environment, among other concerns. If that's the case, Siktar argues there should be nothing to fear with providing greater transparency. Again, this guy is as slimy as it gets, because you go over here, here's an article, Mark Carney's G-Fans, that's the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. Remember, he's Mr. Net Zero, targeted in bombshell climate cartel report by the U.S. Judiciary Committee. This is from June 25th, 2024. This is an ongoing investigation. Go down here, issued by the U.S. House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Administrative State, Regulatory Reform, and Antitrust. The Climate Control Report targets groups like Mark Carney's G-Fans and Climate Action 100, among others. The report claims that the climate cartel imposes these radical policies by weaponizing ever-escalating pressure tactics on corporations. One of the tactics is forcing companies to make immaterial disclosure of carbon emissions, a tactic being pushed in the U.S. and Canada. Mark Carney has been involved in pressuring financial organizations to divest from the oil and gas industry. That is under investigation right now with this organization called G-Fans. And here's Mark Carney on record saying what happens to companies who don't follow along with his rules when it comes to net zero.
Society is putting tremendous value on achieving net zero. So the companies and those who invest in them and lend to them, who are part of the solution, will be rewarded. But those who are lagging behind and are still part of the problem will be punished.
The guy's about as slimy as you can get. People are going to vote for this guy. He reminds me of Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, right? But here's the thing. He's admitted to doing both of these things. You've seen the clips. He's admitted that, yeah, he was putting pressure on companies or you get punished. And yeah, we were putting money in Bermuda to avoid taxes, but the money was going to somebody else and they paid the taxes. But he's admitted to these things. I was talking about different accommodations. I'm talking about a jail cell. This isn't above board. You should send the guy to jail. Tax avoidance. But I think that the conservatives maybe should look at this in a different way. And here's where I'm thinking differently here. And I wrote it down. I put it down. I typed it into my computer so I wouldn't forget my train of thought here. So let me read it to you, what I wrote. I think a good play for Poilievre would be Mr. Carney and Brookfield, good call. Great business decision, just like moving Brookfield to New York. I mentioned earlier it was a great business decision to move to New York. You avoid the awful taxation of Canada, the horrendous economy, and the stifling regulations of the government of Canada. A liberal government, I might add. The Bermuda tax haven might be illegal if you haven't filed with the Canada Revenue Agency. It's highly questionable and definitely unethical, particularly for somebody running as Prime Minister. But from a business standpoint, a lot of people might do the same to get around the awful business environment caused by the Liberal government you advised for years. Now, wouldn't that be great if Poilievre came out and said that? Listen, we're very few days into this election campaign, and I mentioned the net zero thing here. His environmental record is an absolute nightmare, and that's what scares the hell out of me, should he be elected and the Liberals get back in. And that's going to come to light, if not very soon. Poilievre should get into it on the election trail, but it should be brought up during the debate, and he needs to hammer him on that because this guy is a climate zealot. But what do you think about this video? Please let me know. Leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up. We're getting towards 18,000 people on the channel, so subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.